to school based on where they live and where their parents pay taxes. And our question is why? So why can't students go to a school that's a better fit for their education? So we decided to look into this question to see what the possibilities are for more tailored education for each student. Now, there's a lot that goes into making a school what it is and helping it work, such as the programs that are available, the staff, the teachers, and even the perception of the schools. So before we can change schools, let's look at what we have now. So first, there's public schools. These are funded with tax revenue and therefore controlled by the government. So the perception of these schools is that it's where normal kids go to school, or a lot of times it's viewed as bad schools. When you talk about like public city schools, a lot of people view them as being violent or having a lot of crime going on in them, or students that are unmotivated to learn. Next, there are private schools. These schools charge tuition and determine their curriculum and enrollment. So a lot of times these are viewed as schools for rich kids, or everyone that goes to Catholic, or everyone that goes to private school must be Catholic. And finally, there's charter schools. So these receive both private and public funding and have more influence over the curriculum and enrollment than public schools do. So there are a lot of misconceptions about charter schools. A lot of rumors going around about everyone in charter school is a hippie, or they're stealing money and students from public schools. And this is not the case.
Okay, how many of you have ever heard of World of Inquiry School number 58? How many of you know that there's a high school attached to the elementary school? Thank you, John. How many of you have ever heard of expeditionary learning? More than I expected. Usually when I talk about EL, I have to explain what it is. But apparently you guys know a lot about it. But for those of you who don't know, EL is community-based with parents and families playing a large part in a student's education, especially in elementary school. EL is very hands-on. It's based in experiential learning, which is learning by doing. For example, a math teacher at World of Inquiry School, Frank Biska, created a experience called the death problem for his pre-calc class. It applied what the class was learning to a real-world simulation and made the class just that more interesting. Expeditions are a major part of expeditionary learning. They are in-depth learning experiences that include experiential learning and community involvement. In contrast, the traditional method of teaching and learning is more structured, is test-driven, and involves more independent or individual work. There is less communication between students and teachers, and in some schools, some teachers are so swamped with students that they cannot give students individualized attention or academic help in class. Allowing students to choose their school would allow them to utilize unique programs at schools throughout Monroe County, such as driver's ed, BOCES programs, and those included and many more not on this list.
All right, so you guys have been sitting a lot. I know you just had a little break, but I'm going to let you get up for at least a second and stretch your legs. So this picture I took in a school, or someone took in a school in this area, the Rochester area, and I want to ask you what type of school that you think this is based on your perspective on what is in different types of schools. So if you think that this school is a public suburban school, stand up. Public suburban. Okay. If you think that it is a public urban school, stand up. All right. If you think that it is a private school, stand up. Do you know this person? All right. Well, thanks. Okay, well, you guys were different from the survey results that we got. But I'll tell you what we got in our survey, and whatever, yeah. So, so in our survey, we got that people thought that over 56% of people thought that the picture that was shown there was a public school, and almost 50% thought that it was a city school, just based on what it looked like. And obviously, you guys aren't buying into that. But it is a private school. It's McQuaid in Brighton. It was a chemistry lab in that high school. And so based on these results, people were using their perceptions on what they think of schools, because if we look back at the picture, it might look like older, or like it needs some work a little bit. And it seemed like most of the people thought that because of that, it was at least a public school and in the city. So, but you guys didn't do that, so good for you. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the different types of schools and what people's perceptions are of the different schools.
Yeah, so that picture you saw was one of the examples of the perceptions people have based on what schools look like. Here are some examples of what the perceptions they have about the students that go through there. And we have both good and bad. So private schools, when people think of private school kids, some people think that they're snotty or, snotty or stuck up, they're entitled, and they're sheltered. But then others, a lot of people agree that private schools offer better learning experiences and lots of AP classes. We also have urban schools, where people think of drugs and fights and disrespect and sex and teen pregnancy, or people think of great love for students and dedication to teaching, along with great challenges and obstacles that are all too often beyond a school's ability to solve. And then we have suburban public schools. People, again, think of money when they think of suburban public schools. They think students might be rude and entitled, or they think that suburban schools have dedicated staff and families working together to help children succeed. So, regardless of what kinds of perceptions people might have about different kinds of schools, whether they're good or bad, the correlation between poverty percentages and graduation rates reveal the problem the social construct of district lines has caused. Take a look at the graduation rates on the left of each color pairing and the poverty percentages on the right of some school districts in Monroe County lined up side by side. Suburban schools like Fairport and Penfield have poverty rates of only between 10 and 20%, and their graduation rates are above 90. Compare that to the RCSD, where 90% of students live in poverty, and the graduation rate is dismally low, not even 50%. Obviously, suburban students are not smarter than urban students. Brain power isn't dictated by where someone lives. So there must be some other cause of the low graduation rates. And that cause is the overwhelming presence of poverty. Studies have shown that around 40% is the maximum poverty rate at which schools can still really be successful in graduation rates and stuff. Once the poverty rate jumps too far above 40%, poverty-related problems can become more than a school can compensate for, and then success rate plummets, and the students have a lot harder of a time overcoming that. So it's clear from this data that concentrating economically disadvantaged students hurts them. And the really crazy thing is how wide the achievement gap is between the RCSD and Penfield, because a similar physical gap is non-existent. In the Browncroft neighborhood, whether a student goes to school in Penfield or in the city literally depends on which street they live on. In this picture, the blue line is the school district line. Yep. Thank you. And when you look at the big picture, none of the school districts in Monroe County are that far away from each other. The three we showed data from earlier, Penfield, Fairport, and the RCSD, are all really within 15 minutes of each other. So there's no reason why economically disadvantaged students should be set up for failure by being concentrated in one district.
All right, so we want to propose a change that we want to get rid of district lines, and without district lines, students would be able to choose a school that was a best fit for them personally. And getting rid of district lines would help solve the problem of concentrated poverty, of going above that 40% threshold that is so needed. You can only have 40% or else it's not going to work. Anything you do is not going to help if you have it above that 40%. And having students choose where and how they learn allows them to achieve the success that they can and deserve to have.
District lines are arbitrary and often concentrate poverty in certain areas. The Rochester City School District has a 90% poverty rate, which sets up schools and students to fail because there's only so much educators can do. I live in the town of Brighton. I'm supposed to go to Penfield schools, but I go to a city school, World of Inquiry. I'm an exception, but why can't I be the norm? I've done better at World of Inquiry than I would have at Penfield. There are other students whose families have moved to other districts, and the students have kept their old address on their school forms to stay in their school. There are students who do not have that opportunity that would benefit both in the city and in the suburbs. So why do we have divided school districts? School district lines hurt students.
Thank you.